How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be going over how to develop a distance wedge system. And most people are used to the clock system. However, I'm going to be teaching you a different system to help you even dial in your wedges even more, which is called the stance wedge system. And I'll be using a tool called the stance caddy that uses shoulder width in order to help you measure how far you stand when it comes to these distance wedges. And that's the system that I use. So stay tuned and let's get into the video. So as I mentioned before, I go base off the stance wedge system to control distances with wedges. And first, in order to be able to even have that system, we need to measure our shoulder width, right? And so the stance caddy is a tool that uses that in order to dial in your distance wedges. And so to use this tool, what I want you to do is take the stance caddy, and what we have here is a point right here that says shoulder width. And from here, what you would do is take this shoulder width part and have it on your lead shoulder and have it pointed at where your shoulder joint is. And then from there, what you're going to do is slide the black piece here in order to gauge where your shoulder width is, right? So mine's would be about right there, right? And so now I have a system that I'll be using, which will be 3 stance widths. It will be inside shoulder width, and just outside shoulder width to help you control the distances with your wedges. So after getting that set up, now let's get into how we can go ahead and control these distances. Now with the stance caddy, the other tools that this has, along with the shoulder width system, is having it where it's an alignment tool, right? So if you look here, there is a marker here that tells me where to position my front foot, right? And that would mark where I should put my foot when it comes to my stance. And then as well, which is the key here, which is what we'll be using, is there are different numbers here marked from 12 to 20 inches, right? And so now we'll be using the shoulder width, inside shoulder width, and just outside shoulder width for our system to control distances in order to help gauge our distances. So let's follow along. But as mentioned, there's different numbers here, and what you'll be using is you'll have it set up here on the ground, and the stance caddy has it where it marks where your trail foot should be for each club. So it has wedge here, 7-iron, 5-iron, 3-wood, and driver. And so if you put this down right here, when you set up, now you can have it where your front foot will be here. And now my shoulder width is already gauged. So this would be one of my stance widths for my wedge. Then if I want to go inside shoulder width, I would go just inside to about 16.5 or 17 inches, right? And now my stance is narrower, and that would predict how far I can hit another wedge, right? Hit another distance wedge. And then if I want to go just outside shoulder width, so about right here, so about almost 19 inches, because my stance width is at 18.5, almost 18.5 inches. Now from here, now I have another stance to help me hit some more distance wedges. So let's follow along and see how I apply this to hit these distance wedges. So now after setting up your shoulder width with the stance caddy, now let's get into actually applying this for different distances. And so here today at Stonebridge Golf Club here in Waxhaw, North Carolina, and you'll see a picture here right now, is that now we have it where I have a flag that's marked at 72 yards, right? 72 yards, and then from there, there's another flag at 115 yards. And so we'll be working within those 2 different flags. And to be more specific, there's a mound just past the right flag, and the beginning of that mound is at 80 yards, and the end of that mound is at 104 yards. So we'll be using that 72, 80, and 104 to gauge these different distances. So let's apply it now. So for that first 72 yarder, since that's the smallest distance, I will be using my inside shoulder width stance. So if I set up the stance caddy here, right? So now this is my shoulder width at 18 just outside 18 inches. Now I would bring my trail foot in to about almost 16 and a half or 17 inches. So right here. And now from here, now I can just simply take a swing. Okay. So that landed a little bit far. And ideally for me, my first stance width, inside shoulder width, goes about 80 yards. So mine might be going a little bit farther. But for you, where you are at a golf course, you can set it up differently. But let's try that again. So for me, what I'll be doing along with the stance width for this first yardage is just be having a little bit less speed. So let's try that again. Actually, what I'll do is I'll have my stance width even shorter. So now it's about at 16. And that's perfect, right? So that was about 75 yards, right? So that would be my first yardage, 75 yards in order with that inside shoulder width stance, right? And I want you to be able to adjust for yourself, right? So my distances are different than yours. And also as well, if you're looking for some set numbers, I try to go by within 5 to 10 yard increments. So say my first one's 75, I'm looking for 85 for the next one, and then 95 close to 100 for the last one, right? So, and ideally, what the setup should be is you should be able to have ideally 3 wedges, but then 3 distances for each of those wedges, right? Inside shoulder width, and just outside shoulder width. And now you have 9 different shots, right? So now let's move on to the 80 yards, right? And I'm looking for me here, just being at Stonebridge, I'm looking to have it probably go 85 just because I know how far my distances go, right? So now let's set this up here. There we go. So now let's move this a little bit closer. There we go. So now I'll be going now to my actual shoulder width mark, right? Which would be just over 18 inches. And now this ball should actually go 85 closer to 90 yards, right? So 10 to 15 yard increments, right? So now I'll go ahead and hit this right here. So I'll go a little outside there. And that definitely went to the middle of that mound. So now that goes about 10 yards further, right? Let me move this a little closer. And then now the next one we have is at the end of the mound, right? So about 100 yards, right? So now I'll set this up where my shoulder width is at about just over 18 inches. So now I'll be moving it just outside of that even more to say almost 19 to 19 and a half. And now this will go to the end of that mound. And it surely did. So the reason why I like this stance width system is because a lot of times when we're on the golf course, it's tough to try to gauge how far our backswing is, right? But instead, if we think about it a little bit smarter, my stance width is going to gauge how far I can actually swing and then as well hit the golf ball, right? So how to apply different speeds. So instead of you having to think about stopping here, and stopping here, while also trying to focus on the target, now we have a system that we can control at setup without having to worry about within our swing. So inside shoulder width, and just outside shoulder width. Now we have a system that we can rely on while still focusing on the target, right? And then as well, now you have a system now from here. So what we're gonna do is now apply a different situation, right? So now I'm going to take my 50 degree and I'm going to do my inside shoulder width wedge in order to show you how to hit these different distances. Now let's apply this to my 50 degree, right? So now my intention for these different distances is to go just the beginning of the mound, as you saw in that picture. That's going to be at about 80, 85 to 90 yards. So I'm actually tending to go towards the middle of the mound. Then my shoulder width shot with my 50 degree will actually go to the end of the mound at 104. And then now we have the blue flag at 115, which is my just outside shoulder width. So now let's apply that to this different wedge, right? So now same thing. So this is my shoulder width right here, just outside 18 inches. Now I'm going to go to about 16 and a half or 17, right? Now I'm going to apply that same thing to this shot, and this shot should be going about 90 to 95 yards. Now, have to keep adjusting this stance caddy, but that's okay. Now, this next shot, what I'm going to do is have it where I'm going to my actual shoulder width, right? Which is going to be just outside 18 inches. And this shot should go at just to the end of that mound at 100, about at 100 yards, right? And because my stock for just outside my shoulder width, this club goes about 115, 120 yards. So this is going to be 10 yards less, and that's just with shoulder width, right? So now let's go to my normal shoulder width, and this will be going just at about 100 yards to the end of that mound. It might be a little bit further. Yeah, I was a little further. Hit that a little thin. Let's try it again. Hit that one a little thin. Let's try it one more time. So just outside 18 for my shoulder width. Let me readjust this. Move this a little bit further back so I got some more room for some grass. There we go. Just because I like to have my ball position a little bit inside my trail foot, so I have to adjust for that. But now let's go ahead and do to my shoulder width. So now I'm at that 18 inches. This should be going about 100 yards. And that surely did. Now I'm going to go just outside shoulder width. So I'll be going closer to about 19 inches to 19 and a half. And for this situation today, I'm in a little bit of rough, so I'll definitely be catching some flyers that may go a little bit further or a little bit shorter, depending on just how I deliver it. But if you were to do this with a fairway type of lie, you would definitely have some more reliable distances and more normal conditions. But we do get this on the golf course, it's some rough. So now I'm going to go ahead and go. Move this a little bit closer. Now I'm going to go ahead and go. Move this over here to just outside, right? So now I'm going just outside that W sign on this wedge, where the middle of my foot, close to about 19 inches. Now this one should go about 115, 120 yards. And yep, that definitely did. So again, what I want you to do is grab this stance caddy and be able to use this specifically once you measure your shoulder width, the different numbers on here, just inside and just outside of that, to get your different distances and your different stance width in relation to your shoulders. And then as well, down in the description below, I actually have a distance wedge guide where you can actually note how far these distances are going with these different stance widths. So you can put in the certain number of inches in terms of relation to your shoulder width down in that distance wedge guide, along with the distances that you have. And then now you have your ideal 3 wedges and 3 different distances for each wedge. So I hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for the next time.